Adversity is life's ultimate sculptor. It chisels away the excess, refines the rough edges, and forces us to confront the version of ourselves we are meant to become. But most people don't see adversity that way at first. They see it as punishment, as proof that they aren't enough, as a sign that they should quit. And that's exactly what those who doubt you, those who want to keep you weak, are counting on. They push, they belittle, they make you feel small because they fear what would happen if you realized your full strength. They understand something you don't yet. They know that pain, struggle, and hardship don't break people, they shape them. And they don't want you to be shaped. They don't want you to grow beyond their control. Think about it. Every time you've been tested, every time you've been hurt, every time you've been underestimated, something inside you stirred, didn't it? A fire, a whisper, a deep knowing that said, this is not where my story ends. That's the power of transformation through adversity. But here's the challenge. Most people don't listen to that voice. They let the pain define them instead of refine them. They stay down when life knocks them down because it's easier. They accept the labels placed on them. They accept the idea that they are weak because someone else said so. And in doing that, they hand over their power. You've seen it happen. Maybe it's happened to you. Someone tells you that you're not capable, and instead of proving them wrong, you internalize it. Someone treats you like you don't matter, and instead of walking away, you try to prove your worth to them. Someone holds you back, and instead of breaking free, you stay in place, convincing yourself that this is as good as it gets. But here's the truth. Adversity is not there to break you. It is there to reveal you. Think of every great success story, every leader, every visionary, every person who has ever risen above their circumstances. None of them had it easy. None of them were handed their success. They were told no. They were laughed at. They were betrayed. They were left behind. And in that moment, they had two choices. Become a victim of their pain or use it as fuel. That's where transformation happens. When you take the very thing meant to destroy you and turn it into the reason you rise. When you let rejection be your redirection. When you let pain be your greatest teacher. When you stop asking, why is this happening to me, and start asking, what is this trying to teach me? Think about the strongest people you know. They aren't strong because they've never been hurt. They're strong because they refused to let that hurt define them. They used it. They built from it. They sharpened themselves against it. It's like a blade. If you want a sword to be unbreakable, you don't hide it away. You put it through fire. You hammer it. You fold the steel. You test it over and over again until finally it emerges stronger than ever. You are that blade. Every setback, every insult, every betrayal, it's the fire that forges you, but only if you let it. Only if you stop seeing yourself as a victim and start recognizing yourself as a warrior in the making. Some people will never understand this. They will let the fire consume them instead of refine them. They will let adversity crush them instead of transform them. They will stay weak because that's easier than rising, but that's not you. You are here because you know deep down that there is more to you than what you've been through. You know that the pain you face is not your identity, it's your launching pad. You know that every challenge, every moment of doubt, every hardship is a stepping stone toward the person you are meant to be. But transformation is a choice. No one is going to force you to rise. No one is going to pull you out of the fire. That's your job. That's your responsibility. And that's your power, because when you finally understand that adversity isn't happening to you but for you, everything changes. You stop fearing struggle. You stop shrinking yourself. You stop looking at setbacks as the end of the road and start seeing them as the beginning of something greater. And that's when the people who once doubted you, who once tried to keep you weak, will realize their mistake. Because while they were hoping you'd stay broken, while they were trying to hold you down, you were learning to fly. While they were laughing at your struggles, you were sharpening your strength. That is transformation through adversity. And it's yours for the taking. Self-worth is the foundation of everything you build in life. It determines the relationships you allow, the opportunities you pursue, and the standards you set for yourself. It's not just a mindset, it's the blueprint for how you live. Yet, for so many people, self-worth is dictated by external forces. They let other people's opinions, past failures, or temporary circumstances define what they believe they deserve. And that's exactly how people keep you weak. When someone wants to control you, they don't have to use chains. They don't have to physically restrain you. All they have to do is convince you that you're not enough, that you're not smart enough, attractive enough, strong enough, capable enough, that you don't deserve better, that this is as good as it gets for you. And if you believe it, if you internalize their version of you, you will limit yourself. You will stay in places that drain you. You will accept mistreatment. You will play small, not because you aren't capable of more, but because you don't believe you are. That's why self-worth is dangerous to the people who want to keep you weak. Because the moment you start recognizing your value, everything changes. The moment you stop looking for validation outside yourself, they lose their grip on you. The moment you realize that you deserve more, you start demanding more. But here's the challenge. Self-worth isn't something you're born with, it's something you build, it's something you fight for, it's something you protect. Because from the moment you take your first breath, the world tries to shape your identity. It tells you who you should be, what you should accept, how much space you should take up. And if you don't challenge it, if you don't define yourself, someone else will do it for you. Think about it. Every time you've doubted yourself, where did that doubt come from? Was it your own voice, or was it something planted in your mind by someone else? Maybe it was a parent who made you feel like you were never good enough. Maybe it was a relationship that made you question your worth. Maybe it was a boss, a friend, or even society itself telling you that you weren't capable of more. And over time, if you hear something enough, it becomes your truth. Not because it's real, but because repetition is powerful. If someone told you every single day that the sky was green, eventually you'd start to question what you see with your own eyes. That's what happens when people tell you that you're not enough. Even if you were born with confidence, even if you once believed in yourself, the world will try to rewrite that story. But here's what they don't want you to know. Self-worth is not given, it is taken. It is reclaimed. It is something you decide. And the moment you take back control of your self-worth, you become untouchable. Because when you truly know your value, you don't settle. You don't chase people who don't see your worth. You don't stay in places that make you feel small. You don't tolerate mistreatment, disrespect, or anything that drains your energy. You set standards and you enforce them. Not because you're arrogant, not because you think you're better than anyone else, but because you respect yourself too much to accept less. And here's the truth. The moment you raise your standards, some people will try to bring you back down. They will say you've changed. They will say you think you're too good. They will try to guilt you, manipulate you, make you feel like you're being selfish for wanting more. But that's not about you. That's about them. Because when you start valuing yourself, it forces them to look at their own insecurities. When you refuse to accept less, it reminds them of how much they've settled. When you walk away from toxic relationships, it exposes the fact that they benefited from your low self-esteem. And that's why they fight so hard to keep you doubting yourself. Because if you fully realized what you're worth, you wouldn't tolerate them anymore. You wouldn't beg for their approval. You wouldn't bend over backward for scraps of love, respect, or attention. But understanding your worth is only the first step. You also have to enforce it. You have to walk away from anything that doesn't align with your value. You have to stop seeking permission to be who you are. You have to trust yourself, even when it feels uncomfortable, even when it means losing people, even when it means standing alone. And that's the hardest part, standing alone. Because when you first start honoring your worth, it will feel like you're losing everything. You will lose friends. You will lose relationships. You will lose jobs, opportunities, and people you thought would be there forever. But what you're really losing is the version of yourself that was willing to settle. What you're really losing is the weight of people who never truly valued you. What you're really losing is the illusion that you ever needed their approval in the first place. And in that space, after you've let go, after you've chosen yourself, something incredible happens. You start attracting people who respect you. You start creating opportunities that align with your potential. You start living a life that reflects the truth of who you are. Because self-worth is a magnet. When you don't value yourself, you attract people who confirm that belief. But when you own your worth, when you walk with confidence, when you refuse to shrink, you start drawing in people and experiences that elevate you. And that's what they never wanted. They wanted you weak. They wanted you unsure of yourself. They wanted you to keep looking to them for validation because as long as you did, they had control. But the moment you decide that you are enough, as you are, without permission, without external approval, that's the moment you become unstoppable. Growth is an uncomfortable process. It forces you to confront everything you once accepted, everything you once believed, and everyone you once kept close. It is not gentle. It is not easy. But it is necessary because as you evolve, you begin to see the truth. Not everyone is meant to come with you. When you start leveling up, when you start thinking differently, acting differently, demanding more from life, you will notice a shift. The people who once surrounded you, the ones you thought would be there forever, will begin to react. Some will cheer for you, some will admire your strength, but others will resent you. Because your growth is a mirror. It forces people to look at themselves, to ask themselves why they've stayed the same while you've changed. And that is uncomfortable. That is painful. Some people would rather tear you down than face their own stagnation. They would rather criticize your progress than admit they too have the power to change, but are unwilling to. Think about it. There was a time when you fit in, when you settled for the same conversations, the same routines, the same mindset. You weren't a threat then. You weren't a problem. You were predictable, manageable, familiar, but then something shifted. Maybe you started to dream bigger. Maybe you decided you deserved better. Maybe you refused to accept a life that didn't fulfill you, and that's when everything changed. The people who once laughed with you, who once supported you, now look at you differently. They don't understand why you don't engage in the same old gossip. They don't understand why you no longer tolerate negativity. They don't understand why your priorities have shifted. And because they don't understand, they assume you think you're better than them. They assume you've changed in a way that makes them less significant. But here's the truth. Your growth is not a threat to those who are also growing. People who are focused on evolving, on becoming better, don't feel resentment when someone else does the same. They feel inspired. They feel motivated. They celebrate it. The only people who feel threatened by your growth are the ones who benefit from your stagnation. The ones who liked you better when you were struggling. The ones who felt superior when you doubted yourself. The ones who relied on your insecurities because it made them feel stronger. And when they see you rising, they realize they can no longer control you. They can no longer manipulate you. They can no longer use you as a crutch for their own lack of ambition. So they do what they can to keep you small. They question your decisions. They make sarcastic comments about your progress. They downplay your success. They remind you of your past mistakes. They try to plant seeds of doubt in your mind because if they can get you to second guess yourself, they can keep you in the space where they feel comfortable. Some will even try to guilt you. They'll say you've changed, that you don't have time for them anymore, that you're leaving them behind. And maybe they're right. You have changed. You don't have time for the same old patterns. You are leaving behind anything that no longer serves you. But what they don't see is that it was never about them. It was about you, about your need to become the person you were always meant to be. Because here's what happens when you try to hold on to people who don't want to grow with you. You slow yourself down. You shrink yourself to fit into spaces you've outgrown. You dim your light so they don't feel uncomfortable in your presence. And in doing so, you betray yourself. You cannot reach new heights while dragging dead weight. You cannot evolve while staying tied to people who refuse to evolve themselves. You cannot become your best self while surrounding yourself with people who only knew the old version of you. The hardest part? Letting go. Because some of these people are not just acquaintances. They are family, they are childhood friends, they are people you have history with. And history makes it difficult to walk away. You start justifying their behavior. You make excuses. You tell yourself that maybe they'll change. Maybe they just need more time to see what you see. Maybe if you bring them along, they'll eventually understand. But you cannot force someone to grow. You cannot make someone see a vision they are unwilling to open their eyes to. You cannot keep setting yourself on fire to keep others warm. The truth is, when you start elevating, some relationships will naturally fade. Not because of animosity, not because of hatred, but because you are simply no longer aligned. You are speaking a different language. You are playing at a higher frequency. You are moving in a direction they are not ready or willing to go, and that's okay. Not everyone is meant to be part of your entire journey. Some people are only meant to be chapters, not the whole book. Some are there to teach you lessons, to prepare you for the next stage, to show you who you do and do not want to be. But here's what you need to remember. Your growth is not a betrayal. You are not abandoning anyone by choosing yourself. You are not being selfish by prioritizing your evolution. You are simply stepping into the person you were always meant to be. Some will understand and they will rise with you. Others will resent you and try to hold you back. And then there will be those who simply disappear. Not because of a fight, not because of drama, but because the gap between who you are becoming and who they choose to remain has become too wide. And that is the price of growth. It is the cost of becoming. It is the necessary shedding of old skin to step into something greater. There is a reason your windshield is bigger than your rearview mirror. Where you're going is far more important than where you've been. But too many people get trapped in the past. They look back at what was, at who hurt them, at the mistakes they made, at the time they wasted, and in doing so they slow themselves down. Looking back is natural. You spent years in that version of yourself. You invested energy into people who are no longer in your life. You fought through struggles that left scars. But the danger comes when looking back turns into holding on. When you let nostalgia, regret, or resentment keep you tied to something that no longer serves you. Think about it. How much of your mental space is taken up by things that are no longer in your presence? How often do you replay old conversations, wondering if you should have said something different? How many times have you looked at a closed door and questioned if you should have fought harder to keep it open? How many times have you let old pain dictate your new choices? Every time you do this, you are giving power to something that no longer exists. You are carrying weight that was never meant to come with you. You are allowing ghosts of the past to haunt your future. But here's the truth. You cannot rewrite yesterday. You cannot go back and fix what went wrong. You cannot change the people who hurt you. You cannot relive opportunities you didn't take. No matter how much you analyze, regret, or wish for a different outcome, the past is done. The only power you have is in what you do next. Yet, so many people waste their potential trying to win a battle that's already over. They want closure from people who will never give it to them. They want apologies that will never come. They want to prove something to the ones who once doubted them. But that desire, that need to be acknowledged by the past is exactly what keeps them stuck. Because the truth is, the best way to get closure is to move forward without it. The best way to get revenge is to live a life that makes the past irrelevant. The best way to heal is to stop reopening wounds just to see if they still hurt. And yet looking forward requires strength. It requires discipline. It requires a level of self-respect that says, I am more than what has happened to me. I refuse to be defined by the things that tried to break me. That's why so many people stay trapped. Because looking forward means stepping into the unknown. It means letting go of comfort, even if that comfort was toxic. It means walking away from familiarity, even if that familiarity was painful. It means trusting yourself to build something better, even when you don't have all the answers. The people who once held you back want you to look back. They want you to second guess yourself. They want you to doubt your decisions. Because as long as you are looking backward, you are not moving forward. And as long as you are not moving forward, you are still within their reach. That's why you must break the cycle. You must stop entertaining the past. You must stop reopening doors that were closed for a reason. You must stop thinking that your future is tied to anything or anyone that has already been left behind. The moment you decide to stop looking back, something incredible happens. You gain momentum. You start attracting new opportunities, new people, new experiences. You start seeing what's ahead of you instead of what's behind you. You start realizing that everything you thought you lost was actually making space for something greater. And yet, even as you move forward, there will be temptations to turn around. Regret will whisper in your ear. Doubt will try to creep in. People from your past may try to re-enter your life, testing to see if you will fall back into old patterns. But you have to remind yourself why you started this journey in the first place. You have to remind yourself of the pain you left behind, the growth you fought for, the vision you have for your future. You have to trust that what's ahead of you is worth more than anything you've left behind. Because the reality is, the only way to reach your full potential is to commit fully to what's ahead. Half measures won't work. 1 foot in the past and 1 foot in the future will only keep you stuck in place. You have to make a choice. Stay bound to what was or step boldly into what could be. Looking forward is not about ignoring the past. It's about learning from it, using it, and then letting it go. It's about taking the lessons but leaving behind the weight. It's about understanding that your past was a chapter, not the whole book. And the most powerful thing you can do is turn the page.